This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the FNIA podcast, served by Applebee's. And we've got a little change up today. We're missing our quarterback, Jack Collinsworth. He's doing basketball. So it's just me and Rodney Harrison today. Rob, what's up, my man?
Oh, good, Coach. Wait, how you going to tell me that he's a football guy doing basketball?
I don't understand it. He left us for a day, but he's working hard, and we'll pick up the slack. But, man, we got some great football to talk about. But I want to start out, Rodney, with one of the topics that you and I talk about every single Sunday, and that's situational football. We see some great examples of teams doing it right, and then we see some things where we just kind of scratch our head.
Yeah, it seems like every week, Coach. And I guess teams aren't focusing necessarily on the situation. It's all about the call. Let's play man-to-man. Let's blitz. And we're sitting back saying it's 3rd down and 19 and you're blitzing or you're only rushing 2 or 3 guys. I don't understand it for the life of me, but this second half of the season, I expect a lot of these decisions to be a lot better.
You know, we see especially the last 2 minutes of the first half, last 2 minutes of the game, and talk about how much did your Patriots with Coach Belichick work on those situations, those moments, and what you're going to do?
Hey, Coach, that's the thing about being in New England. That's the only thing we really worked on. We worked on every situation. We walked through it. We talked about it. We watched it on film. And the majority of the time, it would actually play out on Sunday. So that's something that our coach really emphasized, something that really made us a mentally tough team. And in those critical moments of the game, we didn't make those big mistakes because we were so used to being in those situations.
Yeah, we were the same way. I learned that from Chuck Noll, but I coached those especially hard. That's so many close games in the NFL, and it comes down to really performing in those critical situations. We talked about the Bears last week and the Hail Mary and not executing, not having a guy ready. Well, they kind of got into the same situation at the end of the first half this past week. They're playing the Arizona Cardinals, 47-yard line. Cardinals have no timeouts. It's almost like they're going to run the clock out. And they let a guy score a touchdown. How does that happen when they just run the ball?
Yeah, we just saw the running back run through everybody. And from my memory, I don't even think the running back was touched. I think they completely caught the Bears off guard. But also, Coach, I just think the Bears kind of gave up on that play, which was really surprising to me. But if they win that Washington football against the Washington Commanders, they come back the following week. They don't have that lazy mindset. And that's why I say that game that cost them against the Washington Commanders could be the ruin to their season.
Yeah, you talked about the hangover, and I didn't think it would happen. But then you're sitting there. There's about 12, 14 seconds left in the half. Arizona hands the ball off. They're just going to run the clock out. The running back keeps running. Nobody tackles him. I think the Bears players thought, well, he's going to run out of bounds or do something. He runs all the way up the sideline and scores. They don't force him back into their help. Just a terrible, terrible situation. A bad way to end the first half.
Yeah, and that's something that teams should definitely focus on the second half of the season. It's not necessarily about plays, and of course it's about health, but it's about being prepared and ready for those different situations.
And then the other one that I hate, especially when you're on defense, you talk about, hey, we can't stop the clock. We got to keep them in bounds. We can't give up big plays, and then you can't get penalties. Okay, the Miami Dolphins, they've just had a nice drive. Tua's tied it up. There's less than a minute to go. They have Buffalo backed up 2nd and 14. Josh Allen goes with a hard count, and the guy jumps offside. Now, how many times have you talked about that in the huddle to your teammates when you're out there in a 2-minute situation?
That's one of the first things we say when we're in a huddle. We say, hey, guys, pay attention to the ball. Ignore the quarterback. Watch the ball. Don't give him any free yardage. It's those little subtle reminders. And then all of a sudden, if you have a player that does that, then you look at him like, dude, you're putting us in a situation where you're going to cost us the game, especially against really good quarterbacks.
Yep. So Miami jumps offside. Now it's 2nd and 9. Different situation. Josh Allen throws a deep ball. Jordan Poyer gets a penalty. They should be off the field, and now they give him 15 yards and put him in field goal range.
Unbelievable. But what about Monday night, Coach? Do we have anything for Monday night? Because I like to get into Monday night.
Yes, please. Chiefs against the Buccaneers. You talk about situational football. Patrick Mahomes takes his guys down. They score. They've got a 7-point lead, and Baker Mayfield executes a beautiful drive, plays good situational football, gets it to his guys, and they score with, well, first of all, they take a timeout, which was, we can talk about that, but they score with 30 seconds to go, and now they're down 1 point. What are you thinking as a coach or as a player in that situation?
In that situation, Coach, the first thing I said for Todd Bowles, this is a no-brainer. You have to go for two. You just had an excellent offensive drive. You took them 10 plays, 71 yards, 1 minute and 49 seconds. So you know you can move the ball against this team, and against any inclement weather, bad weather, it didn't matter. You cannot afford to give Patrick Mahomes a second chance in overtime, because you saw the reaction on Baker Mayfield. As soon as that coin toss, he went like this. Oh, he knew it was over. He absolutely knew it was over. So when you have a chance, Todd Bowles, you can't play conservative football. You got to go out and you got to send a statement, especially with you missing so many guys, you know, the Winfields of the world and Mike Evans and all those guys. You got so many injuries. You can't take a chance on going in overtime against the best team in all of football.
I agree with you on that one. Todd's a good friend of mine. He lives down the street from me, but I have to say that when you're the underdogs, you're playing the defending champions, and you have a chance to bet on one of two things. You can bet on your team, who has just taken a drive and scored. You can bet on them from the 2-yard line one time, or bet on the coin toss. What are you going to bet on?
It's especially when the opportunity is in our hands. It's like we're controlling the situation. And I just think it sends such a great message to your team. Hey, we trust you guys on offense. Baker is our guy. He's our $100 million quarterback. We got the weapons. We fought this team for 4 quarters. We can beat this team. And now, even if you lose the game, at least your team knows that their coach is behind them, that the coach trusts them, and he believes in those guys. So I think this was a huge mistake by Todd Bowles. And whenever you're playing against a great quarterback, you have to be aggressive and go for it.
Yeah, Todd took the conservative route. He kicks the extra point. They do hold Kansas City. They didn't score, and it was really a miscommunication between DeAndre Hopkins, their new receiver, and Mahomes. But they stop him. Now that you go into overtime, the coin toss, Kansas City gets the ball. And how many times have we seen the Chiefs play excellent situational football in those moments? They know exactly what to do. Mahomes knows what to do. He's not going to make mistakes in the critical moments in overtime.
Not at all, Coach. This is something, once again, great teams. When you have a really good team, you go over this type of stuff. You have conversations. You talk about it. You walk through it. You practice it over and over again. And sometimes it feels like it's getting kind of monotonous. It's getting boring. But when you really know that these situations show up and now you're more prepared, and that's what the Chiefs are. They're a well-coached team. They're more prepared than everybody in those situations. And that's why they never panic, Coach, when they're in those moments.
And they didn't panic then. They got the ball. They mixed the running game. Kareem Hunt's pounding it, little short passes. And the big play in that drive was a sideline pass to DeAndre Hopkins. And Hopkins got it, spun out, got away from the tackle, puts them in position where they know they're going to win the game. But let's talk about that. We talked about Andy Reid, and just how he prepares the team. But how about making that decision to go out and get a key piece? You lost some receivers right before the trade deadline. We're going to now go and get not just a receiver, but one of the top receivers in football.
See, that's what I was thinking, Coach, when you were talking about it. I'm like, you're getting a guy that is borderline a Hall of Famer, a guy that's had a tremendous career. He's experienced. And think about it. He goes from a terrible situation where he's not even catching passes, he's not even enthused to come to work, to now being with Andy Reid, a guy, and Patrick Mahomes that's going to really open up and utilize his ability and his talent. And now they have a true number one. And you know DeAndre Hopkins is never covered. He may have slowed down a half a step, but he's still got those great hands. He can still run routes. And Patrick Mahomes knows that in a red zone, I can go to this guy. And having somebody outside of Travis Kelce is so important, a veteran that's been there and done it.
Yeah, so you're missing Rashee Rice. You're missing Hollywood Brown. You're missing Juju Smith-Schuster. Your offense is a little bit stagnant. We need some help. And they go out and get a Pro Bowl caliber receiver who is hungry to be there. And The first week he catches a couple of balls, but the second week he catches 8 passes and he's into this offense. And that's the other thing about it. I mean, people talk about this trade deadline, but it takes coaching, it takes the quarterback, it takes the other guys to bring this guy in, make him feel like part of it and teach him what they're doing. And obviously Hopkins caught on very quickly.
Yeah, they've embraced him, and he's come in, he's humble, he wants to work. Hey, it's not about me, anything. I don't care if I have 2 catches, I don't care if I have 10. Anything you need me to do, I'm willing to do. And one thing about Mahomes, he knows that he's a veteran. He knows that he's used to getting the football. He's going to give him opportunities, Coach.
Yeah.
So that's something that he should be definitely excited about. He's going to get the ball.
And you could see Mahomes, what took place. He's sitting with him in the meeting rooms, going over things, going over all the tape with him, staying out after practice with him, getting that chemistry and that feel, and 8 catches and the big catch in the key moment in overtime. It just speaks volumes to them. Now, let me talk about the other side of the coin. We talk about your team, the Dallas Cowboys. They have CeeDee Lamb now, who's banged up a little bit. What's happening with him? They haven't been able to score. They want to inject something into their offense. They go out and get Jonathan Mingo. Now, I don't know Jonathan Mingo that well, but I'm sure he's not DeAndre Hopkins. Why would you not go after DeAndre Hopkins if you need weapons?
Well, the same reason they didn't go after Derrick Henry, Coach. I mean, these are 2 different organizations. And you think about this, Coach. You think about how the Chiefs built their team. And they told basically Tyreek Hill, no, we're not paying you $30 million a year. We're going to trade you. We're going to use those resources for the offense and the defensive line. And that's what they've been able to do. And that's been the biggest difference. When you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes, he's responsible. His job is to get the ball to all the weapons. But the most important thing is protecting him. And and that's the thing that you have to do. You have to make sure you protect him. And for the Cowboys to go out and get a young guy that's unproven, they need help on the defensive line. They need help on the offensive line. They need a running back. It's just, for the life of me, you get Jonathan Mingo while everybody else is getting Amari Cooper and these guys and Devontae Adams. You go trade for Jonathan Mingo. Come on, Coach. What are the Cowboys doing?
Well, Rodney, you had some advice for them on our show, on our postgame show. I want to go to that and see what exactly you gave Jerry Jones in maybe some good advice. Let's take a look.
Coach, the problem with the Cowboys, and we both know it, on offense, the offensive line is weak and the defensive line is weak. And it's hard to win a championship. It's hard to win football games against good football teams when you have those issues. So, they have to do something. They have to figure something out. And that's why I say you're not going to I don't believe they're going to re-sign Micah Parsons to a long-term deal. I think you trade Micah Parsons. I think you get a bunch of draft capital and you move on, because you got to build up that offense and that defensive line. And that's the reason why they're struggling.
Yeah, Coach, and you think about this. You trade Micah Parsons, and I would even consider trading CeeDee Lamb, because I believe you send a message to your team that said focusing on, hey, we're going to build the team the right way. You got so much money in Dak Prescott, and his situation has been different, because if Jerry Jones would have signed him and maybe CeeDee Lamb earlier, he could have got him for a lot cheaper. So Dak Prescott is saying, you know what, you waited to the last moment to sign me. So you know what? I'm not going to give you a break. I'm not going to be like Brady and give you a financial break. I'm taking as much as I possibly can. And that's what happens when you upset players, Coach. And now you can't really build the team the way you want to be able to build the team. And that's the difference. Mahomes, you look at Mahomes in the way what he's done. He said, look, he's making $40 million a year, almost $20 million below market value. And you think about the reason why they were able to sign Chris Jones back to a long-term extension. Then talking about the interior of that offensive line, having 2 or 3 Pro Bowlers on that offensive line, making sure that Patrick Mahomes is protected. And everybody else, is replaceable outside of Kelsey.
Yeah, and that I agree with you. And that's where I am on it. I'm not maybe a fan of trading CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons, but I do believe they should have signed those guys 2 years ago. Get them under manageable contracts. Then you would have had money in your salary cap to go after Derrick Henry. You could have gone after DeAndre Hopkins, and you would have had the money to do it. Now you've boxed yourself in. And Patrick Mahomes is sitting there saying, you know what? I'm going to take a little less than market, but when we need DeAndre Hopkins down the stretch, we've got money to go after him, and we can do it. And to me, that's how you win championships.
That's an excellent point, Coach. And really all this happens because of the quarterback and his willingness to not be the highest paid player. You know what I'm saying? Like when you see like a Patrick Mahomes taking less and you're like, man, this is where I want to be. Patrick Mahomes is making 40-some million dollars a year. Dak is making 60. And Patrick, not once has he ever complained about money. He's like, look, I'm fine financially. I want to be able to have where we can have players just like you talked about. And to me, that's where it starts. It starts with the quarterback. And when you have that quarterback, and we know that Dak is a talented guy, but he ain't Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, we were in that situation one time in my career, 2006, our Super Bowl year. We've got our offense rolling, but we're struggling on defense. We're missing Bob Sanders. We have some linemen hurt. And Bill Polian comes into me and says, we can make a trade. It's going to cost us some draft capital, but we can get Booger McFarland. I said, what? We can get Booger McFarland, a guy who is a proven commodity. He knows our system. He's played in the defense. I know what he can do. Let's go do this. And you're right, because we had some unselfish players and we had a quarterback who took a little bit less. We were able to go get Booger in midseason. He was the key down the stretch for us in that Super Bowl run.
And that's why, and Coach, and that's why you're able to win a championship and do the things that you've accomplished, making smart moves like that. I remember we went and got Wes Welker, I think in 2007, and he had played well against us. And then Belichick the next year, he goes and get him. And he had 112 catches the first year. He had over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. And 5 out of the 6 years that he played, he had over 100 catches. So when you go out and you make a trade, you need to go out and make a splash. You need to get guys that can come in and contribute right away. And just like Booger McFarland came in and did his thing, I look at the Cowboys and saying, what are you doing? You had all these guys that you could have gone and got, and you got Mingo. No disrespect to him, but Mingo.
Yeah. No, at this point, you got to get difference makers and guys who can fit in what you do. And then you got to have the coaching staff to work those guys in. And you guys had that. Obviously, the offensive coaches work with Welker, and he fit in just like that, just like a glove.
And Coach, I'm gonna tell you one guy, if I were the Cowboys, who I would have probably went after was Alvin Kamara. I feel bad for him, Coach, because he's been there. He's actually having a really good year. He's been there 8 years. And if I'm the 49ers, if I'm the Cowboys, heck, if I'm the Seattle Seahawks, if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I'm looking to get Alvin Kamara. The guy can catch out of the backfield. He knows about blitz pickup, and he can still run in between the tackles. He's still a very productive guy. That's the type of move I'm talking about. Something that's going to really make an impact on your team.
No question. And the Saints may be willing to do it. They traded Marshawn Lattimore, and you know, gosh, you trade one of your best corners. That tells you can trade anybody. Anybody's available. So I agree with you. Well, let's go next. Let's go next to who's eating good in the neighborhood. And I know you've got some teams in mind that are eating pretty good and have come up on us some.
Yeah, and Coach, for me, I look at the Rams, and you know we've had this big question. Everyone's, hey, what are the Rams going to do defensively without Aaron Donald? And we talked about Jared Verse. We talked about him potentially being the Rookie of the Year. Both of us, Defensive Rookie of the Year. We both agree on that. Braden Fisk, he's been very solid, for this team. And then I'll also look in the secondary what they've been able to do. Jalen McCullough, rookie safety with these young guys, 4 interceptions. So not only is Sean McVay is getting it from his offense and all the injuries that they had on the offense, but this defense is really starting to come together, Coach. And I'll tell you, Kyren Williams has been outstanding this year.
Yeah, no question. The Rams are eating good right now. We go back a month, they were 1-4. Their wide receivers are out. We saw them. Their offensive line was banged up. Stafford's getting mauled, and everybody's saying, well, it's time to reload. Maybe you want to trade Cooper Kupp. Maybe you want to trade Stafford. Well, all of a sudden they get their wide receivers back. That opens up things, lets Kyren Williams have a little more room. They're now balanced on offense, and they're now 4-4. And they're going to make some hay. They've got the Dolphins next week and then the Pats. before a big showdown with the Eagles, and they're rolling and in good shape right now.
Yeah, and I just love how, Sean McVay is trusting his other guys. It's not just his two starters, but Tutu Atwell, Demarcus Robinson, all these guys are getting opportunities, and they're really taking advantage of them.
But one more team that I think is eating good right now is the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, we can go back to a point they lost to the Bucs 33-16, dropped to 2-2, and everybody had questions and what's going on. They're not using Saquon. Well, they come back, they beat the Browns, they beat the Giants, they dominate the Bengals, they beat the Jags. They're 6-2, and they're rolling right now and feeling good about themselves.
And you know what, Coach, the thing that I was looking at Jalen Hurts and his numbers, and I was like surprised that the last 5 games, you realize he has not thrown an interception. And that's been key, them not turning the football over, but also learning that, hey, the offense goes through Saquon Barkley, not Jalen Hurts. And I love that because it seemed like it's taking so much pressure off of Jalen Hurts. But also I look at that defense, and you talk about Jalen Carter, he's having a Pro Bowl type year. Kobe Dean, the middle linebacker, he's starting to play without thinking. You can start to see his natural instincts kind of take over. And then Cooper DeJean in the secondary, these young guys making an impact in the passing game.
Yeah, no, they are. But I think the key is what you hit earlier. Focus it on Saquon. And we look at the stats after these games, and the Eagles have 39 runs, 41 runs, and 24 passes. That's their style. When they're pounding the ball and you have to defend Saquon, then Devontae Smith's one-on-one, A.J. Brown's one-on-one, and you can make things happen then. And that's why Jalen's feeling very comfortable. I don't have to force the ball. I don't have to make things happen. And they're playing great football right now.
And also, I got to mention, you're absolutely right. And I would have to mention the Atlanta Falcons, man. I'm starting to see the Falcons turn into a complete team. And I'll tell you, the most impressive guy outside of Kirk Cousins has been Bijan Robinson. I mean, I think he's been terrific. You started to talk about the top 2 or 3 running backs in all of football. I would put him at number 3, right behind Derrick Henry, and say maybe Josh Jacobs or Saquon. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the type of impact that he's having. And that offensive line has been great. The defense is starting to come around. And, I said the other day that Jesse Bates, I believe that he should be Defensive Player of the Year in the halfway point.
Well, they are. They are playing good football, leading the NFC South. And I think you're right. I think it starts with Bijan. He is really dominating games, making people defend him. And now Kirk Cousins is throwing when he wants to throw and throwing against one-on-one coverage. And Cousins is playing outstanding football for them because Bijan, they've made him the focus of the offense.
Now that's opening up opportunities for the big tight end Pitts. And now he's playing on a level that we thought he can play. He's making catches down the middle of the field, down the sideline. He's just been a difference maker.
Yeah. Well, some teams are eating good, and we've got a good one ourselves. We're going to eat good when we get to Houston. We've got the Houston Texans hosting the Detroit Lions. And I laugh because Detroit Lions dominating the division. I grew up in that area. We never said that, Rodney. And now we're saying, hey, this is a Super Bowl contender.
And I tell you this, man, I got to give props to, I know it's about the coach, but General Manager Brad Holmes and the job that he's been able to do, the players that he's provided them with, the depth on the defensive line, the recent trade he just made, making sure he takes care of Jared Goff, making sure that Montgomery is paid and that he's happy. These players, when you talk to them, they love the atmosphere. They love being a Detroit Lion. They have pride when it comes to that city. And that's something that I hadn't seen in years. We saw Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson, a few good players here and there, but now it's taken over an entire city, Coach. And I tell you, the Lions are the real deal.
I'm glad you gave a shout out to Brad Holmes because you look at some of their recent drafting. And yes, Aiden Hutchinson, okay, we can say that's an easy one. But the running backs and getting Gibbs, Jameson Williams, and Laporta, and just piece by piece putting this thing together. And you mentioned a trade. We were talking about trade right before the deadline and getting an impacting player. Well, now all of a sudden you're struggling in your pass rush because Hutchinson's hurt, and you need that. And he goes out and is able to make a trade and get not just an okay pass rusher, but get a really good rusher.
Yeah, he gets an outstanding player in Zadarius Smith. And this is a guy, coach, can play the run, can play the pass. He's very similar to Eatin because he brings a lot of energy. He's a big guy. He's tall. He's going to bring a lot of energy and a lot of, just that veteran experience. So I'm excited for him. I think this is a huge move, and this is a move that they're trying to make. They're trying to get to the Super Bowl. It's no question about it. These are moves trying to propel them to the Super Bowl. And just think about this, coach. Jameson Williams, he's not even playing right now. So their big, deep threat, he's not even playing right now because he's suspended.
Yeah, he'll be back for our game, and that's going to give them a shot in the arm on offense. And we always talk about the big matchups and what you're looking for. Well, this Houston offensive line has struggled, and C.J. Stroud has been sacked 30 times this year. Now I want to see Zadarius going against Laramie Tunsil, and that could be the matchup that turns this game. We'll see.
Yeah, and I look at Houston, those guards in the interior of that defense, those guards, Shaq Mason and Green, those guys have not been very good. And then you look at their leader, Laramie Tunsil, he's the guy making over $20 million a year, and he's playing worse than anybody. He continues to lead the team, if not the league, in penalties with about 13 or 15 or something like that. So he has to do a better job, or it's going to be a sad day because of Liam McNeil and DJ Reader. Them guys are really big, tough, and physical in the middle of that defense.
Well, the Texans are going to have to score some points because this Detroit offense is hot. Jared Goff hitting 80% of his passes. He's getting Jameson Williams back. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see my hometown Lions. I know you talk about the Falcons. My hometown Lions in Sunday night football. So we'll see you down there, Rod. Hope you guys
everywhere we go is your
hometown.
hometown.
Thanks for being on the podcast.